One move, one tariff. And just like that, the United States turned its back on hundreds of thousands of American workers. In 2024, Washington didn't go after Chinese goods. No, this time the target was Japan, but not the Japan across the Pacific. These were cars built right here, in places like Ohio, Tennessee, and Ontario. Assembled by American workers on American soil. Toyota, Honda, Nissan. These weren't just foreign logos. They were major American employers. They brought life to small towns, paid union wages, and even led the charge in electric vehicles. But then, with a sudden 25% tariff slapped on their vehicles, Washington sent a chilling message. Almost overnight, these longtime allies were rebranded as threats. But Japan didn't respond with rage or retaliation. It did something far more dangerous. It simply began to walk away. Now the shock waves are hitting the U.S. auto industry hard, especially in electric vehicles, where the stakes couldn't be higher. When most Americans hear Japanese cars, they picture imports from overseas, but here's the reality. 1 in every 3 cars on American roads today carries a Japanese badge. And a huge number of them, they weren't imported. They were made in America. Toyota, Honda, Nissan, they didn't just ship cars in, they invested deeply. Every year, Japanese automakers produce over 3.22 million vehicles in the U.S. at plants in Tennessee, Alabama, and Ohio. That's not outsourcing, that's putting down roots. Let's break it down. The Toyota Ray V4, built in Kentucky, Honda Accord, made in Ohio, the all-electric Nissan Leaf, rolls out of a plant in Tennessee. These aren't foreign companies acting like visitors. They've been part of the American manufacturing story for decades. Just look at Toyota's $13.9 billion battery plant in North Carolina. It's designed to create 5,000 jobs and power America's electric vehicle transition. But with one tariff, that trust was shattered. The message from Washington? Loud and clear. We don't care how much you've contributed. You're still not one of us. And for Japan, that message hit harder than any tax ever could. Japan didn't lash out. There were no fiery speeches or threats of sanctions. Instead, Japan moved quietly, strategically, and with a clear long-term vision. Just weeks after the tariffs were imposed, the signs of retreat started to appear. In Japan's Kyushu region, Nissan abruptly scaled back production of 13,000 Rogue SUVs, cars that were meant to end up in American driveways. At the same time, Toyota began shifting its EV production out of Alabama and over to Thailand, where it plans to produce 100,000 electric vehicles each year from a new base in Southeast Asia. But the boldest move? That happened in China. Toyota signed a $2 billion agreement to build a brand new EV plant in Shanghai. That wasn't just a business decision. It was a message. Japan wasn't going to beg for American validation anymore. It was preparing for a future beyond the U.S. Here's the twist. These moves didn't suddenly appear. Many of them had already been set in motion as early as 2018. That's when Japanese automakers quietly started planning for a future where the U.S. might isolate itself. They saw the early signs, trade tensions, tariffs, rising nationalism, and began sketching their exit strategy. So when Washington acted in 2024, Japan was already packed and halfway out the door. But Japan's departure wasn't just a shift in business strategy. It triggered a chain reaction across Asia. First, Tokyo doubled down on the CPTP, a major trade pact that the United States once helped create, only to later abandon. Now Japan is helping lead it, sending a clear signal to the region. We can grow without Washington. Then South Korea started reassessing its position too. Samsung, one of the world's largest tech firms, began exploring deeper chip partnerships with China. In an era of electric vehicles and digital infrastructure, China looked less like a rival and more like a key ally. But the biggest transformation is happening in ASEAN. Southeast Asia is quickly rising as the new global auto hub. Think of it as Asia's version of Detroit, only spread across nations like Vietnam, Thailand, and Indonesia. It was supposed to create 5,000 jobs and boost America's electric vehicle future. But with one tariff, that trust was shattered. The message from Washington was clear. No matter what you've contributed, you're still not one of us. And for Japan, that cut deeper than any tax ever could. Japan didn't hold press conferences or issue threats. It acted quietly, strategically, and with a long-term plan. Just weeks after the tariffs were announced, signs of retreat began to show. In Japan's Kyushu region, Nissan cut production of 13,000 Rogue SUVs, cars once bound for U.S. buyers. Toyota, meanwhile, shifted its EV production from Alabama to Thailand, where it plans to build 100,000 electric vehicles per year. But the most significant move? Toyota signed a $2 billion deal to build a new EV factory in Shanghai. This wasn't just business. It was a message. Japan no longer needs American approval. It's planning a future beyond the U.S. And here's the twist. These moves didn't just happen overnight. Back in 2018, Japanese companies began preparing for a world where the U.S. might close itself off. Trade wars, rising tariffs, and a surge in nationalism were all warning signs. By the time the 2024 tariffs hit, Japan had already laid the groundwork to walk away. While the U.S. was busy putting up trade barriers, China rolled out a red carpet. Beijing saw the future was electric, and it moved fast. It handed out big subsidies for new energy vehicles, drawing in partners from Japan and South Korea. It wasn't just about cheap labor. It was about joining the next leap in green technology. One major example? BYD, China's top EV maker, teamed up with Toyota to develop solid-state batteries, game-changing tech that can drastically improve charging speed and range. And where are they being made? Not in Detroit, but in Shanghai. China didn't stop there. It brought South Korea's LG on board too. Together, these countries are locking down the EV supply chain, from rare earth minerals to final assembly. Meanwhile, the U.S. is scrambling. Why? Because key materials for EVs, like refined lithium and cobalt, are still largely controlled by China. So while Washington talks about made in America, the actual parts that power green technology are moving east. Washington believed it was standing up for American workers, but it missed the bigger picture. Today, 2.29 million U.S. jobs are tied to Japanese automakers. Think factory jobs, parts suppliers, car dealerships. Real people in places like Kentucky, Ohio, and Alabama, all relying on Japanese investment. Yet when the EV tax credits were rolled out, Japan's hybrids didn't qualify, even if they were more fuel efficient than some U.S.-made models. Why? Because they weren't built by Detroit brands. Here's the irony. The very automakers Washington was trying to protect, like Ford and GM, are heavily dependent on the same foreign supply chains the U.S. is now pushing away. Take the Ford F-150 Lightning, America's pride in EV trucks. It runs on Chinese lithium. GM's advanced Ultium batteries? They are powered by Korean technology. In trying to punish Japan, the U.S. exposed how little control it has over the electric vehicle future. Instead of building bridges with allies, it built walls. And now America is watching its electric vehicle revolution slip away. The United States is now at a crossroads. And neither path is easy. Option 1, reverse course. Rebuild trust with Japan and Korea. Strengthen USMCA ties with Canada and Mexico. This would mean updating trade policy, cutting tariffs, and making real space for allies in the electric vehicle race. But time is running out. Option 2, Asia fully decouples. Japan, Korea, China, and Southeast Asia create a self-sufficient trade bloc, one that sidelines the U.S. while leading on EVs, batteries, AI, and logistics. Then there's the wildcard digital currencies. China's digital yuan is already gaining ground, and insiders say Japan and Korea are exploring ways to join. If that happens, it could reshape not just the car industry, but the entire global trade system. And that's something Washington can't block with sanctions or tariffs. This isn't just about cars. It's about who gets to write the rules for tomorrow's economy. And right now, the U.S. is losing. Not because China is stronger, but because America pushed away its own allies. So, did the U.S. just hand China the keys to the future of the auto industry? Factories that once hummed with U.S.-built cars are now losing momentum. Global partners who once looked to the US are turning away. And the electric vehicle revolution America promised to lead is now being driven by others. Thailand's EV sector is expanding at record speed. China's tech firms are securing critical battery IP. And Japan, it's no longer waiting for the US to catch up. It's already planning for the next green breakthrough without Washington. This isn't just about electric vehicles or tariffs. It's about a global power shift in innovation, trade, and influence. The decisions being made right now in DC, Tokyo, and Beijing will shape the next century. But here's the real question. Will the United States realize what's happening before it's too late? Can Washington reclaim its place at the front of the next industrial revolution, or will it sit on the sidelines watching others race ahead? If you want to understand how a single policy choice can reshape the entire global order, this story is just getting started. Hit the like button if you're curious where Biden's EV policies will really lead. Comment below if you want a deeper dive into how this is affecting American workers, global trade, and the future of innovation. And subscribe to stay updated, because in a world where trade rules are changing by the day, every move matters. We'll be right here breaking it down as it happens.